Advice to youth. What would you advise a young person or a group of young persons? That's precisely what we are going to discuss in this particular chapter. Advice to youth, a pretty ordinary kind of title. In fact, I've also written an answer on what is the significance of a title like this. Okay, this is written by Mark Twain, easily one of the most prominent writers that English literature has seen. You would have read many of his stories. I would advise you to definitely read the box before the story, because that gives you a sense of a context to what exactly we are talking about. Okay. The interesting thing is that Mark Twain was the pen name of Samuel Langhorne Clemens. That was the real name of the author. And he was a very well-known American writer, humorist, satirist, someone who used wit and humor and satire a lot in his writings in order to drive home the point, because it's always like this. If you are indulging in public speaking, and this is in fact a speech, so if you are indulging in public speaking, if you give a very boring kind of gyan giving kind of lecture, the audience won't really be interested. So always when we are trained in public speaking, and when I train people in public speaking, one of the things that I tell them is that it's always important to be conversational. That is, that every member in the audience should get the feeling that, this person is talking to me directly, right? What he or she is saying is actually relevant to what I am doing in my life or what's happening in my life. That interaction, that kind of a connect is very important when it comes to public speaking. And this particular speech oblique essay that you would read actually ticks the boxes on many of those counts, because it's extremely conversational and it's as if he's telling you some important life truths. Okay, so this is a phrase which you can use in your answers also. So he was praised as the greatest humorist the United States of America had produced. William Faulkner called him the father of American literature. And of course, Tom Sawyer, one of the greatest characters that he created, Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and many other writings that he has done. So that's precisely what you find in this particular essay also. Now, this was written in 1822. Okay. And this is Mark Twain's address to the youth. And as I said, makes use of wit, humor, sarcasm, and satire in order to drive home the point. Now, basically, he was asked to come and address the youth. Mota mota story ye hai. Okay. So what does he talk about? So he talked about the basic aspects, things which any young person would relate to and would find it important, but he delivered it in a very different kind of manner. And that's what makes this essay interesting. That is written in 1882. You are still reading it now in the 21st century. Okay, isn't that exciting? So I wouldn't go through all the points. I've written the 7 broad points in the notes, so you can go through. Revision ke time pe it will be useful so that you know, okay, this is what he said. These are the key words for this, so that it will be useful when it at the time of quick revision a day before the examination. So I've written the 7 points for that. I'll talk about the broad themes. One is the respect for authority that he speaks about. I'll explain it while we are going through the chapter, but you can just keep it in mind so that it's easier for you to digest what I'm telling you. Honesty and dishonesty, which is basically intertwined with the theme of lying. I wouldn't call it a theme of lying. झूठ बोलने का theme थोड़ी होता है, but with the basic bad habit of lying. Use of violence is another broad theme, and the reading habit with which he ends the essay or the speech. Okay, there is an emphasis on, because of the times that he wrote in, on the Victorian values of respecting authority, avoiding violence, and honesty as a virtue. Okay, and some of the books that he has mentioned in this particular speech oblique essay are books which were relevant to the times that he wrote in 1882. So around that time, whatever books were being spoken about or being read, that's what he has mentioned in this particular speech. Okay, let's get started. Okay, each and every word you'll need to pay attention, because some of them, as I said, a lot of googlies are there, so you need to understand what he's actually saying. Being told I would be expected to talk here. Okay, just see how he has started the sentence itself. You are generally not used to starting a sentence with a being, usually. Okay, at least not an essay. being told I would be expected to talk here. That is, the organizers are told that I am expected to deliver a speech here. I inquired what sort of talk I ought to make. What should I speak about? It's obvious. Someone invites you to talk. You obviously would want to ask 3-4 questions. Who is the audience? What is the nature of the audience, the age group, the gender of the audience, the professional qualifications or the academic qualifications of the audience, so that you prepare your speech accordingly. You prepare your presentation accordingly so that it kind of hits the target audience, so that it's relevant to the target audience. I'm saying this as a speaker myself. So you kind of do that. So you ask those kind of questions. What would they be interested in listening to? Right? What are they aspiring to do? Those kind of few questions you always want to do. So that's the kind of question that Mark Twain also asked to the organizers. The organizers said it should be something suitable to youth, a very vague. This, if someone tells me, oh, you should say something which is suitable to the students, it doesn't help, because I want to know what class students are they. Are they primary class? Are they 10th class? Are they 12th class? Are they graduates? Are they postgraduates? Students can be anybody. Students is an umbrella term, right? So this kind of a very umbrella kind of a explanation doesn't really help. It's hardly an explanation. Something didactic, instructive, or something in the nature of good advice. Okay, so when he inquired, Twain was told that it should be didactic. Basically, didactic means designed to teach people something, especially a moral lesson. You should be very honest. You should respect your parents. That's precisely what he does, but he does it in a different way. Okay. Instructive or something in the nature of good advice. So you give good advice, or he should offer the advice. So basically this shows the assumption that is made about how you should address the youth of the day. And this makes it largely boring, as I said, because didactic moral lesson can be, people saying kya paka raha hai kind of thing, right? So this is a very Bombaya language. Would not take into consideration what the youth are really looking for. Very well. Now, very well is almost like, okay, very well. So he kind of, it's almost like Twain is talking to himself. It conveys that Mark Twain is willing to deliver that kind of a speech, but his eyes are perhaps twinkling. Oh, okay, very well. So, some bulb has gone up in his mind and he's thinking that, okay, I will do this. Okay, so he's thinking of how he will do it differently. So very well conveys, has that kind of a tonality. I have a few things in my mind which I have often longed to say for the instruction of the young. Okay, 1 minute. So he says, I have a few things in my mind which I have often longed to say. That is, I have often wanted to say. Longed means for a long time I have wanted to say, for the instruction of the young. That is, for the benefit of the young, to kind of, so that they find it useful. For it is in one's tender early years, that is, at a young age, that such things will best take root. That is, such habits can be formed and be most enduring, means they last for a long time, and most valuable. First then, I will say to you, my young friends, and I say it beseechingly, urgingly. Beseechingly, urging, best take root is things that are taught at a young age have a better chance of being learned, being imbibed, and staying with the person for a long time. Beseech means to urge with a lot of emphasis. Okay, what I've done is, in the notes, I've written it as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is paragraph number 1. So I've divided the whole thing into paragraphs so that you'll find it easier to relate. But explanation video is something which you should always listen, because this will always have more details, because notes are meant to be crisp. Always obey your parents when they are present. Okay, now you generally say this. Always obey your parents, right? This is usually not said, right? So he's saying always obey your parents, and then there is a comma, almost like a short pause. Always obey your parents when they are present. That is, when they are present only you need to obey them. When they are not present, you have the option of not obeying them or not listening to what they have said. This is the best policy in the long run, because if you don't obey them, they will make you obey them. So you understand कि अगर मम्मी का कहना नहीं मानोगे, so she will ensure that डंडा मारूंगी या कुछ भी करूंगी, you will have to listen to what I have to say. Most parents think they know better than you do. Okay, universal truth. I'm sure all of you agree with that. And you can generally make more by humoring that superstition. Now, see how he has used the word superstition. Superstition is something which is largely not true. So he's trying to say that parents usually, or rather, not in all the cases, know better than their parents. I'm sure the parents listening to this won't be very happy with this kind of talk by Mark Twain. But he calls it superstition, which is an element of, injecting humor and injecting kind of an irony. He's almost trying, because parents know better than their children, you wouldn't call it a superstition. I mean, at least I haven't read anywhere anyone calling it a superstition. So basically by saying that, he's meaning to say that he does not believe it is true that parents always know better than their children, than you by acting on your own better judgment. So it's better to listen to them, especially when they are present, than try to, because then they will kind of ensure that you have to do what they have said, right? So this is an element again of wit and humor. You can use this as an example if you get such a question. Be respectful to your superiors if you have any, also to strangers and sometimes to others. Now the second aspect that he's talking about is that you should be respectful. You should be respectful to superiors, anyone who is in a superior position, either a teacher, a professor, or someone you are interning with, or at the workplace whenever you get employed. If you have any, also to strangers. Even to strangers, you should be respectful. There is no need to be disrespectful to anyone. So you see, he's giving you a very moral lesson. And then he goes on. If a person offends you and you are in doubt as to whether it was intentional or not, do not resort to extreme measures. So someone may insult you, offend you, insult you, humiliate you, say something which is kind of, putting you down. Now you need to understand whether it was intentional, whether he did it intentionally, or whether it was some kind of a mistake, galti se, inadvertently mistake ho gaya. Okay. So whether it was intentional, or do not resort to, so he says do not resort to extreme measures. The moment he says that, I will also insult you in the same way. Don't do that. Think always, and this is something which I also believe, never react immediately. It's always better to think and then react. Okay, it gives you that extra time to react, whether in cricket or in life. Simply watch your chance and hit him with a brick. Watch your chance means wait for your opportunity. Wait for the opportune moment, and when that comes, and if that person has insulted you intentionally, offended you intentionally, deliberately, then hit him with a brick. And hit him with a brick does not necessarily mean literally, does not necessarily mean physical violence. It essentially means that you take revenge. Okay, that will be sufficient. Now, I can pretty much imagine that many of the youth in the audience would be very happy to listen to this kind of talk. That उसने मेरे को मारा तो बदला लेने की बात कर रहा है मार्क ट्वेन, so घुसा मारो. So if that will be sufficient, that is, you give time and wait for your opportunity. Don't react immediately. If you shall find that he had not intended any offense, but in some cases you may find that it was unintentional. It was not something that he or she intended to do. Okay. Come out frankly and confess yourself in the wrong when you struck him. Then you should kind of, if you have hit him, you should kind of come out and say sorry for it, apologize for it. Okay. Acknowledge it like a man. Okay. Now, this is, not really meant to be a sexist kind of phrase, but it's just a way of putting it in English. Okay. And especially in those times. And say you did not mean to. Yes, always avoid violence in the age of charity and kindliness. The time has gone by for such things. Leave dynamite to the low and unrefined. So he says that you should not indulge in violence. So Mark Twain is making it very clear that you should not indulge in violence. Hit him with a brick, I repeat, is not meant to be in a literal kind of a sense. He's saying take revenge, but if you have made a mistake in taking revenge, thinking that he did it intentionally, go ahead and say sorry, and you should not indulge in any kind of violence. Avoid violence, he says it, because he says in this age of charity, when you do good things to others, violence has no place in a society in today's kind of times. Leave dynamite. Dynamite is again to convey physical violence. So leave dynamite to the low. Only the low and the very unrefined kind of people should be basically referring to people who may not be educated, who may be a little rough and crass kind of people, the gunda type. They are the ones who can indulge in physical violence. You people should not do it. Okay, because he's talking to students, who have been educated, right? Yahan tak samajh mein aa gaya? Go to bed early. Fourth paragraph. Go to bed early, get up early. This is why. Some authorities say get up with the sun. Some say get up with one thing, others with another. So he's saying go to bed early, get up early. This is why. So that is his statement, that he believes that go to bed early and get up early. Okay, so early to bed, early to wise is something which Mark Twain says. And he says some authorities say get up at the time when the sun is rising. Some say get up with one thing, another. But a lark is really the best thing to get up with. Now, lark is a bird that gets up very early. So Twain is being funny that, later on when he says about the lark, it gives you a splendid reputation with everybody to know that you get up with the lark. And if you get the right kind of lark and work at him right, you can easily train him to get up at 9:30 every day. It's no trick at all. So he's just being funny. That you train the lark to get up late so that you can also get a few extra hours of sleep. Now, as to the matter of lying. Now, this is the important paragraph about lying. Lying and violence, these are the more important paragraphs. Now, as to the matter of lying, you want to be very careful about lying, otherwise you are nearly sure to get caught. So he says that you've got to be very sure about lying. If you have decided ki jhoot bolna hai, if you have decided that you are going to lie, you need to be very careful lest you should get caught. Once caught, you can never again be in the eyes of the good and the pure what you were before. Because once you are labeled as a liar, you will always be looked at with suspicion the next time. The next time, even if you are speaking the truth, the person opposite you or hearing you would think that I am not sure. Can I be sure that he is telling me the truth this time? So that kind of a doubt will always be there. Many a young person has injured himself permanently through a single clumsy and ill-finished lie, the result of carelessness born of incomplete training. Now, what is he saying out here? So he's saying that there have been many a young person, and he's saying young person because he's also talking to a group of young people. Okay, many a young person has injured himself permanently, means he has spoiled his reputation. Okay, please remember this. Has injured does not mean a physical injury. So he's not meaning it in the literal sense. He's meaning it in the sense of has spoiled his reputation through a single clumsy and ill-finished lie. That is a lie which was not spoken correctly, was not spoken in a refined way, was not spoken in a way which made it sound like the truth. A good lie is when it is interpreted as the truth. That when you say it with a straight face, with all the confidence and with the right kind of body language, the other person feels that he must be saying the truth, even if you are saying a white lie, right? So because people are clumsy with their lies, that they are very fidgety with their body language, their eyes, they don't see in the eye, etc., then it becomes so what happens is that they end up spoiling their reputation. It is a result of carelessness born of incomplete training, because they have not trained themselves sufficiently in the craft of lying. Okay, so it's interesting. Now, as an audience, I can imagine, Arey, kya bol raha hai jhoot bolne ke bare mein? He's almost telling us to lie, So he's drawing the people to listen to him carefully. You see, that's what Mark Twain is doing in this particular speech. Some authorities hold that the young ought not to lie. There are some authorities, people in positions of authority, they say that the young people like you should never lie, right? That, of course, is putting it rather stronger than necessary. And he says that, well, basically trying to say that, well, will that really be a practical option, that people will never lie, right? Still, while I cannot go so far as that, I do maintain that, and I believe that I'm right, that the young ought to be temperate in the use of this great art until practice. What is he saying? Temperate means they need to moderate. Aisa nahi hai ki jhoot bolte raho. What is he saying? What he's trying to say sarcastically, and he's calling it a great art. He's calling it a great art because he says this great art needs a lot of practice. So unless you have practiced the craft of lying quite a lot, people ought to be temperate. Young should not kind of indulge in too much of lying unless you are absolutely sure that you can deliver it right. Okay, now it's a very strange and a very pure kind of an advice to be given to you that, well, there are people who say that, jhoot nahi bolna chahiye, you should not lie. But I would say that you should not lie unless you have completely practiced it enough number of times. Till then, you should be a little moderate in the use of lying. And experience shall give them that confidence, elegance, and precision which alone can make the accomplishment graceful and profitable. So he says, unless you have practiced it enough, only then you will be able to, with a lot of elegance, with a lot of self-confidence and precision, be able to deliver a lie. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Patience, diligence, be very diligent means being at it all the time. You do it continuously many times, so you are very diligent. Painstaking attention to detail, that if you are lying, you need to understand that, okay, if I am saying this lie, okay, मैं क्या बता रहा हूँ ये सब? I mean, I find it very funny that you almost are advising people to lie. Anyway, completely goes against my ethics. That because I always believe that it's easier to speak the truth than to tell a lie. Because when you're telling a lie, you need to cover up many things. So if you are saying a lie, you should be able to think 5 steps ahead and think what are the possible questions that the other person may ask. Aisa kyun hua? Why did this happen? How did this happen? Where is it happening? Etc. So you should be able to cover up. So what is he saying? Painstaking attention to detail. That's important, because if you're speaking the truth, it's very clear. I'll be here, this is what is happening, and this is the reason why this cannot happen. Whereas if you say that, oh, this has already happened, I have done 50% of the work already, then you will be inviting questions on what all has happened in the 50% of the work, right? So the painstaking attention to detail. Whereas if you say, I have not done the work till now, then there's nothing. End of story. He may say, get lost, I'm not going to give you the project anymore. But if you say that I've done 50% of the work and I will finish it by Monday, then it means that you need to kind of provide details of what you have already done, right? So that's what I'm saying, what Mark Twain is saying, painstaking attention to detail. These are requirements. These in time will make the student perfect. So he says the student of lying, or in this case, the student population in general, both senses. Upon these only may he rely as a sure foundation of future eminence. Eminence is popularity or being famous, that, only then he can kind of, do better in life in this particular art. Think what tedious years of study, thought, practice, experience went to the equipment of that peerless old master. So he's saying tedious means very laborious, a lot of hard work and stuff like that. Think, he's asking the people, think of how many tedious, long-winded years of study, thought, practice, experience went to the equipment of that peerless old master. Peerless means matchless, someone who does not have a match, who was able to impose upon the whole world the lofty and sounding maxim. Maxim is something which is taken as the truth, that truth is mighty and will prevail, right? So somebody, told the world that truth is mighty and will prevail, and we all believe it. So basically he's trying to be sarcastic and saying that this may not be true, that truth is mighty and will prevail. But we have been told about it with so much of confidence, precision by this old master. I mean, whoever said this great saying, that whoever said this has said this with a whole lot of confidence and precision and perhaps practice, that we all believe it. So basically trying to say that truth is mighty and will prevail itself is a lie, is what Mark Twain is trying to imply. The most majestic compound fracture of fact which any of woman born has yet achieved. Any of woman born means anyone who is born of a woman, which means all of us who are born of women. Now, basically what he is saying is that the young should not lie. Temperate means to moderate, as I said, too much till they have gained confidence with a lot of practice and experience. Now, it should also be taken as sarcastic, as I said, because to promote lying is unethical, and also to say that you have to practice lying means that while you are practicing means you will keep on doing it, right? So you are only promoting the cause of lying. So obviously he's trying to drive home the point, the didactic lesson, through a mixture of sarcasm, wit, humor, and satire. The maxim is a short statement that talks about a general rule or conduct, and where is that? Hmm. Okay, so he's saying that this is like the most important and very majestic, means a very lofty kind of a compound. I mean, almost being sarcastic when he says majestic compound fracture of fact, right? That it is the most majestic, royal, and very lofty kind of a thing which has been said, has yet achieved, because no one will really achieve something like that. No one will be perfect, because everyone lies at some point of time or the other. For the history of our race and each individual's experience are soon thick with evidences that a truth is not hard to kill and a lie well told is immortal. So he says you can actually kill the truth, and this also happens through slander, through article with social media. You say a lie 100 times, people start believing it is the truth. People also believe what they want to believe is the truth. Okay, this is my philosophy. I say that XYZ is a good man. Yes, I think this is true, even though this may be completely a falsehood. And a lie well told is immortal. A lie which is told well is immortal, means it does not die, right? There is in Boston a monument of the man who discovered anesthesia. Many people are aware in these latter days that the man did not discover it at all, but stole the discovery from another man. Is this truth mighty, or will it prevail? Now he's referring to the man who discovered anesthesia, which is William Morton, who apparently, the story goes, now we don't know whether it's a truth or a lie, but the story goes that he apparently stole the discovery from another man. Okay, so that is what he's referring to. So he's saying that, well, is this truth mighty? That what had happened, or will it prevail? And will it prevail? That people are aware that this is what happened, but there is this monument of the man to William Morton who discovered anesthesia, right, which is used in all the surgeries. Ah, no, my hearers, the monument is made of hardy material, but the lie it tells will outlast it a million years. Now, he's saying hardy material means something which is robust and strong. Okay. And Twain is against lying, but if you cannot say it well, that's precisely the point that he's making, right? And an awkward, feeble, leaky lie. This is an important key phrase. An awkward, feeble. Feeble means that you don't deliver the lie with a lot of confidence, right? So it is a very feeble kind of lie. You are very awkward about saying it. You look down, you look here and there. You don't look at the person and say it. So obviously that person will feel suspicious that you're not speaking the truth. Leaky is something which has too many loopholes in it, right? Leaky lie is a thing which you ought to make it your unceasing study to avoid. That is something which you should not do. Such a lie as that has no more real permanence than an average truth. So that kind of a lie, so completely you should avoid. Why you might as well tell the truth at once and be with it. It's better to tell the truth and get over with it. A feeble, stupid, preposterous means foolish, lie will not live 2 years. Uska life 2 saal bhi nahi rahega, except it be a slander upon somebody, unless you are defaming somebody, unless you are kind of indulging in character assassination, which also happens a lot on social media, right? So that is, 100 people get together, say that we will all speak the same lie against this one person or against this group of people, and that will be enough. We will kind of defame the person, and that can go on for some more time. It is indestructible then, of course, but that is no merit of yours. You may destroy that person's reputation by spreading that lie, right? Then of course, but that is no merit of yours. It doesn't mean that you are a great person, that you have managed to do something like that with that kind of a slanderous lie. A final slander is when you kind of damage, when you say something which is not true about someone with the intention of spoiling someone's good name or reputation. You feel jealous. Oh, this person is doing so well in his life. I can never reach and match up to what this person is doing. So what do? You start spreading some lie. Okay, you use social media, you spread some lie in order to damage that person's reputation, right? And that person will now have to spend his energy to fight the slander that you have done and spread it around, right? So you are doing a slanderous job. That is what is the meaning. So he says, a final word, begin your practice of this gracious and beautiful art early. Begin now. So he says, if you want to lie, start lying now, practicing it. And he says, if I had begun earlier, I could have learned how. So basically, Mark Twain is saying that I did not do it. I did not practice. I don't know the art of lying. So you see how he's doing. It's not as though he's endorsing lying. And he's almost in a very sarcastic manner, practice karo. No, you always feel that, why would I practice the craft of lying? So he's trying to put them on the back foot by being sarcastic and by using wit and humor. And he says at the end that I did not do it. Okay, so he's saying that I am not in this business. Never handle. Now, let's come to the thing of violence. Never handle firearms carelessly. Firearms means any kind of weapons. It could be a pistol, a gun, rifle, whatever. Okay. The sorrow and suffering that have been caused through the innocent but heedless handling of firearms by the young. Okay. You understand what is this? Only 4 days ago, right in the next farmhouse to the one where I am spending the summer, a grandmother, old and grey and sweet, one of the loveliest spirits in the land, okay, so he's talking about a grandmother, was sitting at her work when her young grandson crept in and got down an old, battered, rusty gun which had not been touched for many years and was supposed not to be loaded, and pointed it at her, laughing and threatening to shoot. So this grandson pulled out an old, rusty gun which had not been used for many years, loaded it, and he pointed it to, was supposed not to be loaded, and he pointed to her. In her fright, she ran screaming and pleading toward the door on the other side of the room, but as she passed him, he placed the gun almost against her very breast and pulled the trigger. So he kind of this thing, and he pulled the trigger. He had supposed it was not loaded, and he was right, it wasn't. But imagine the fright of the grandmother. Suppose it had been loaded. You always feel, right, that this must be loaded, and you kind of, one bullet can finish you off. So she was obviously very scared. So there wasn't any harm done. It is only the only case of that kind I ever heard of. Therefore, just the same, don't you meddle with old unloaded firearms. So he's saying violence, and especially don't try to mess around with old unloaded firearms. They're the most deadly and unerring things. Unerring means, erring means to make a mistake. Unerring means they don't make a mistake. Things that have ever been created by man. So he's completely against the use of any kind of firearms, especially old unloaded firearms. You don't have to take any pains at all with them. You don't have to have a rest. You don't have to have any sights on the gun. You don't have to take aim even. You just pick up a relative and bang away, and you're sure to get him. So he's saying that, this doesn't need any practice. Unlike the craft of lying, you just pick it up and shoot. You will be able to kill someone. A youth who can't hit a cathedral at 30 yards with a Gatling gun in 3/4 of an hour can take an old empty musket, which is another form of firearm, and bang his grandmother every time at 100. So he's saying that the chances of you being able to kill with an old firearm are much more, even if you are not good at actual shooting practice in real life. Think what Waterloo would have been if one of the armies had been boys armed with old muskets supposed not to be loaded. Waterloo is the battle in which Napoleon lost 1815. Okay, the battle of, so basically he's trying to say that you need to be very careful with old rusty weapons. And the other army had been composed of their female relations. So he's saying that suppose one side of the army was boys, he's just trying to be funny, boys with firearms, with old firearms, and the other with their female relations like grandmother. The very thought of it makes one shudder that they would have been able to kind of kill many more people. There are many sorts of books, but good ones are the sort. Now, finally, he comes to the importance of the reading habit. There are many sorts of books, but good ones are the sorts for the young to read. Remember that they are a great and inestimable and unspeakable means of improvement. Therefore, be careful in your selection, my young friends. So he's encouraging them to read, just like I do. Be very careful. Confine yourselves exclusively to Robertson's sermons. Now, these are the books which were prevalent at the time when he has written this essay. Baxter's Saints' Rest, The Innocents Abroad, and works of that kind. So these are the books that he's referring to, important from the MCQ point of view. But I have said enough, so he comes to the end. I hope you will treasure up the instructions which I have given you and make them a guide to your feet and a light to your understanding. So he says, I hope you will be able to make use of these tips that I have given. Build your character thoughtfully and painstakingly upon these precepts means these kind of instructions that I have given. And by, that is as time goes by, when you have got it built, you will be surprised and gratified to see how nicely and sharply it resembles everybody else. So that when you do that, you will find that you are pretty much like everyone else. So he again ends with a bit of a sarcastic kind of a thing: gratified, pleased, or satisfied with something. So he says, he's by the last line, he means that many of the points that he has said are not to be taken very seriously, because if you do, you'll end up like everyone else. So there will be no kind of distinguishing factor, right? So basically, he has driven home the point: the reading habit, what he has said about violence, about lying, about obedience, respect, all those points he has said, but he has said it in a engaging kind of manner, when he is almost like talking. So there is a lot of use of you. It's not like delivering a bhashan. He's not delivering a bhashan like many of our politicians do. He's talking, he's conversing, he's speaking to his target audience. So with this, we come to the end of advice to the youth. There are a whole lot of very short questions, one line questions, answers I've written. I'll be giving you the logical reasoning questions. I'll be giving you the 5-mark and 10-mark question and answers. Also, the MCQ. So all that will be covered as part of this particular chapter, and that will kind of ensure that any question comes from this, you should be comfortable. Okay, tata, bye.